So what are we gonna do today, Cousin BW?
The same thing we do every day, Melvin. Try to take over the neighborhood.
Hey y'all, Bloodwing here. Back to bring some grumpiness to the internet. It's time again for Let Me Talk At You, my podcast. I've actually put this off for a few days because some of the subjects I wanted to cover today, or at this point, have to do with the current drama all going on YouTube and Twitter. And some of it really gets my blood up. Some of it it's hard for me to approach without becoming emotionally invested. And that's not always a good thing. I might say something that you and I both might regret. And I have no doubt that some of the things I say here may upset some of you. I absolutely know it's going to upset some people. And some people that I call friends. But it can't be helped. I can't stay quiet just because I might upset someone. That's kind of hypocritical. So I'll try my best not to get too emotionally invested and to speak only rationally as much as I can on these subjects. Might be a little bit all over the place. I did not write out a script. These usually aren't scripted, but I didn't even write out a list of things I wanted to talk about. I just got through recording a video on Steve Shives and thought, while I've got Audacity open, I just as well jump right into this thing while I've got someone here to watch the grandkids. So, yeah, there's been a lot of drama. What a week, huh? What a week. I mean, it is like everywhere you turned, there was drama from somebody. And even some of my friends said, what's with all the drama? Whoa. And my reply is, it's always been there. It's just that right now it involves some of the more visible, some of the bigger channels than it usually does. But there's always some kind of drama. Anytime you get a group of human beings, I don't care how good of people they are, some of them are going to fight with one another and they're not going to get along. And you take a community. I really hate that word. I really do. And there's a lot of reasons I hate it. And I'm not going to go into that here. But I don't like it. But for the sake of this video, I'll use the word community. In our community, you look, and there's so many big egos. I mean, come on. You kind of got to have a big ego to do what we do. Not too many bashful, shy people get out there and do what we do. Not too many. And you got to be just a little bit narcissistic. Let's be honest. And you get big egos like that together in one place, and there's bound to be some skirmishes. It's just going to happen. It's not that there's anything wrong with our community. So calm down. And and if you're one of those feminists, they're looking at it, licking your chops and pointing your fingers, say, they're eating each other apart. We'll get through it. But let's address at least bits and pieces of some of it that's happened. If you want to go on this journey with me, if you're not interested, more than welcome to turn off now, and there'd be no hard feelings. I get it. I'm pretty sick of it too. But people have asked my opinion on some of this stuff, so I figure I'll give it. So, I guess the first thing would be, is the whole Thunderfoot Sargon thing going on. Because that was attached to something that was going on before this week because of Russian Deadpool, that male feminist fella that killed his girlfriend. And so many conflicting stories are coming out now. Now it's saying he couldn't have PTSD because he was never deployed. And there was a rumor going around on mushrooms, but there's just a rumor that he was on mushrooms. And we really don't know what caused him to snap. Only that he did snap. But Sargon of Akkad, who I generally like, was in a live stream of a fella called V, who I generally don't like. Sorry, V. And Troughton T and another fella who's Louis something, whose name escapes me right now, and it's not important. And it was pretty much right after the killing, after the event, and some of the facts were starting to be known, but not very many. They had a live stream, and you've probably seen Thunderfoot's video, so you know what it's about. But Thunderfoot took exception to some of the jokes that were being told on there. Now, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I wouldn't have told those jokes. I understand gallows humor. I do. I get it. And I'm not going to stand here, however, and be your moral judge and tell you when it's too soon or not too soon. The rule of thumb I always follow is if I wouldn't say it to a person's face, I wouldn't say it on the internet. I really wouldn't. And none of you making those jokes would go to their funeral of that poor girl and make those jokes out loud where her family can hear it. Because being a parent and a grandparent, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but just the way that it is, that's where my mind is. I'm worried about them. I'm not worried about how you get over it by telling your nasty jokes. I don't care about you and your nasty jokes. I care about her family. Can't help but feel for that. I'm a parent and grandparent. But I'm not going to tell you what you can do. I'm a believer in free speech, and that has to go all the way. I wouldn't have made those jokes. I thought that they were disgusting and not even funny. But that's as far as I take it. If I don't want to hear it, I know how to walk away. I vote with my feet. And if you don't want to hear it, that's what you do. You vote with your feet. But Thunderfoot got all bent out of shape, said he's going to leave the skeptic community, which, good thing I'm not a skeptic, huh? Never have been, don't want to be. And that's exactly why. He seems to be under the impression that so many others, and others that we're going to talk about tonight, he seems to be under the impression that since we have common enemies that we're wanting to be all part of his community, and that's not necessarily true for all of us. But he threw a lot of weight on Sargon, making it look like Sargon was a part of telling the jokes and everything, and I won't go into all the details, but Sargon did not make the joke. He made one joke, and it was at Russian Deadpool's expense, and I got no problem making no jokes about him. You know, he deserves whatever we can throw his way. But Sargon didn't do what Thunderfoot said he did. He was very dishonest in the way that he edited what he put together, and he has since doubled down on it and made another video in response to Sargon's response. So back and forth it goes, and back and forth it goes. But how many of us are surprised? Thunderfoot's been sliding down that slope for quite a while. You know? Me, I'm the kind of guy that if I think you're messing up my good thing, and to one of your points, Thunderfoot, I'm an old guy too. You made that statement, and I've been around, and I've seen movements come and go, and I've been involved with a lot of movements that came and went. And invariably, yes, somebody comes around that doesn't quite fit the mold and kind of messes things up. And guess what you do? Instead of running and taking your back and go home, you stand up to that person and you try to fix it, if you really cared about what you were doing. But I suspicion you've been looking for a reason to just exclusively do your science videos, which at this point might not be a bad idea for you, bud. You know? But yeah, Sargon didn't do what Thunderfoot was trying to say he was. And no, just because I don't appreciate those jokes that were made on that live stream doesn't mean you can't make them. I'm not going to make you have to censor yourself to be around me. If I don't like it, I know how to turn the internet off. You know? And please, but if you're thinking of making the comment, well, that's how the internet is, you know, you got to understand it's the way that it is on the internet. Don't tell me about how the internet is. I've been on the internet for over 20 years. longer than some of you have been born. Certainly many of you were just in diapers when I was first delving into this thing called the internet, and there's been nasty stuff on it from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, in the days that I first started out in it, it was probably nastier. It was the Wild West back then. So don't tell me. It's just an excuse to not be a decent human being. I get enjoying gallows humor. We've all been there. We hear that joke, the improper joke, and before we think about it, we're laughing, and then, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't have probably laughed at that. That was kind of in poor taste. We've all done that. And gallows humor has its appeal. I'm not against that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a line between gallows humor and just being a bad person. And sometimes that line is crossed. And that's not just being on the internet. I don't have to accept that's just the way it's going to be. You know, I have the right to tell you that you're being an idiot and then go on do my thing. I'm not going to take my bag and go home. Might stay away from you for a little while, but that's for your protection, because I know I have a bad temper. Better that than say something to you that might ruin a friendship. So that's all I'm going to say about Sargon. And if any of you are still with me now, then now we're going to talk about teal deer. Now, I've never been a big fan of teal deer. I've listened to some of his stuff. And I don't have a problem with attention span, so please don't tell me it's because of my short attention span. I don't have a problem with that. I have a very good attention span. Don't have ADHD and all these other things that so many people today claim to have. And I'm generally suspicious of. But that's just me. But it's just the way in which he approaches it doesn't appeal to me. If he does to you, good on you. I have given it a chance. I've tried to listen. But he loses me. You know. There's such a thing as too much of a good thing. And he sometimes goes a little too far and kills you with facts and this, that, and the other. All about the facts. I love them. Facts are good. But you can kind of beat people into the ground with that kind of content. But it appeals to some people, obviously, by his subscriber count. And that's all well and good. But what I want to approach here, I'm not going to talk about his entire video and everything that's going on, but what I want to approach is, and you guys are all aware of that, is this assumption that certain people in our community, there's that word again, just aren't putting out good enough content. They're lazy. And they're just copycats. And in particular, some of the women, because some of them might show a little boob, a little cleavage, a little skin. And therefore, they're just not as good as the rest of us. And I spoke out on Twitter a little bit and told the story of Hedy Lamarr, which if you don't know, real quick, Hedy Lamarr was an actress who got her start in the 20s. And caused a big stir early in her career because she'd done some nude scenes and a close-up of her face during orgasm. Now, this was the 20s, so you can imagine that was a big deal. That was a very big deal. But fast forward a few years, and Hedy Lamarr worked out a technology called frequency skipping, which is a big component of our cell phone technology, our Wi-Fi technology, a lot of technology that's in use today. It wouldn't exist without that technology. So my point was, Hedy was very beautiful and did show some skin and this, that, and the other, but there was a brain underneath that. If you actually listen to the arguments, you might be surprised, instead of just getting all wound up and turned off by some boobs. And if boobs turn you off, then don't watch that. See, here's my biggest problem, though. I will admit that there's some content creators out there I don't quite agree with. It's not because they show some boob, but I just don't agree with their content. And some of them are a little over their head. Tag comes to mind. The atheist gamer. But when we start pointing the finger and saying this channel is no good and that channel's no good, they don't fit with the rest of us. They're not as good as we are. It's a very slippery slope. I mean, what's next? You're going to point at my channel, and because I don't have a college degree and because I talk funny with a redneck accent, I'm not going to be good enough? Because that's where it could go. So those of you that are agreeing with him on this, you might want to take another look, because your channel might be next. When you start getting into this kind of elitism. And the other thing is, Teal Deer, what makes you think we're trying to be a part of your community? Like I alluded to earlier with Thunderfoot, I'm not a skeptic. Just because we have some common enemies doesn't mean I'm trying to be a part of your community. I'm trying to cut out my own niche. I'm my own person. I have a few people I hang around. Sure. Circle of friends? Sure. But that's as far as it goes. I'm not trying to be a part of anything. I do this because I have a voice. I have things I want to say. And I think the things that I want to say have merit. And I'm not going to ask your permission or anybody else's permission on whether or not my stuff is good enough. Because if it's not good enough, my channel won't go anywhere and will slowly sink into the sunset. And just like some of these other channels that you're speaking out against, if they're not good enough, they'll go away. They'll go away. Who made you their judge and jury? And any of the rest of you that are looking down your nose at some of these other channels. Be careful of that slippery slope, folks. Because that's the funny thing about those. At any given time, you can be next. At any time, you could be next. So let's try not to do that. If you've got channels you like and I don't, good on you. If you got channels I like and you don't, good about that too. That's what makes us all different. Different strokes for different folks. Different people have different tastes and different styles appeal to them. But if the same message is still getting across, so what? Who cares what method they use? If I had a better looking body and a more handsome face, I would certainly use that to get people in the door. And then once I got them in the door of my channel, then I could dazzle them with brilliance. So, folks, come on. Let's just be careful with that kind of stuff. I mean, isn't that what the feminists do? Don't we get so frustrated at them when we point out people in their community that do stupid stuff and they come up with it? Well, they're not a real feminist, or they're not a real Muslim, or they're not a real this or real that. And we get so frustrated at them for it, and that's exactly what we're doing here, guys. Oh, they're not a real skeptic because they're not as good as I am. Screw you. And that's all I got to say about that. Now, if there's anybody left still, then let's talk a little bit about the recent event with the attack in Manchester. And at this point, it's come out, they've named who they think was the suicide bomber. I've forgot to pull it back up before I started recording this, so I don't know the name, but you can find it pretty easily. He's a 20-something-year-old Libyan man, and he is a Muslim. Hey, feminists, SJWs, social justice warriors, when are you going to wise up about this religion? How much lower would you have to go to blow a bomb up near the entrance at the end of the concert when it's at its most crowded? A bomb made of nails, which is by its very design anti-personnel. It's designed to kill as many people as possible with one blast. And this was done at a concert that it was well known was going to be full of young girls. How much lower do you got to go? Blow one up in an orphanage? In a children's hospital? Is that what's coming next? Is that what it's going to take for you to wise up to this so-called religion of peace? You know, Trump, I'm not a big Trump fan. I'm glad he got elected instead of Hillary, for darn sure. But I really didn't like any of our choices in this last election. I've always thought Trump was an idiot. Still think he's an idiot. But I hope he does some good things while he's in office. I really do. And I'll give him a chance to do those. So many people are jumping on the bandwagon and let's bash Trump because he hasn't done this and he hasn't done yet. It's only been a few months, folks. He's got 4 years. 4. And if he hasn't done it by then history will judge him on whether he was good or bad. You know, give him a chance. I didn't like Obama, and I certainly gave him a chance before I started screaming, "Jeez, what an idiot." So give him a chance. But one thing I hope that he does institute and is able to get through Congress if he can, because I know that he'll have a lot of opposition, is to close down our borders a bit. Restrict immigration from places that are known for Islam terrorism. And we know that this was because the Islamic State has come out and taken credit for it. I mean, we Americans, those of you that are American listening to me, and you know that I am, look at what goes on over there in Europe. We've had our tragedies, you know, not the least of which is 9/11, but there's certainly been more than that. But it seems to pop up every day over in Europe. And I know some of my buddies are saying, well, you know, the UK's not like Germany. And you know, like I've heard my buddy Irate Bear say, you know, the UK's not Germany and we don't have the Muslim problem over there. And I hate to tell you, bud, but apparently you do. And I'm sorry to say that, and I'm sorry that you do, and I really feel for you guys. Dollar to Donuts, this guy probably came in through Germany's borders, or one of the others that are just as lax. But we Americans, we sit back and we watch what's going on over in Europe. All because your governments are afraid to shut down the borders and to do what it takes to maybe keep some of these people out. At the expense of their own people. And it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And if the social justice warriors, the feminists and whatnot here in America have their way, our country will be the same. I pray it never gets to that point. I really do. You know, the attacks we do get here are bad enough. We don't need to add to that. But what's it going to take, you social justice warriors that are supposed to be for social justice? This is supposed to be for what's good for the people by your own definition, what you think's best for society. Then what is it going to take for you to realize that what's best for society is not to open your borders to this religion of hate and death? Hashtag not all. I'm sure there's some good people that are Muslim. Because just like any other religion, there can be good people involved. They're just mistaken. They're uninformed about what it is they're truly following. I don't doubt that that's the case with some people. But I'm also smart enough to know that if they follow their Quran to the letter, then they're terrorists. It is not a religion of peace, and it never will be. Has not been for the centuries that it's been a religion, and it's not going to suddenly change now. So what's it going to take? But my heart goes out to those in Manchester. My heart goes out to those parents of those kids and any other victims that were involved in that concert. It's a terrible, sad thing. Innocent people, innocent children, just trying to have a little bit of a good time. And this is done in the name of, quote, the religion of peace, unquote. So what's it going to take, people? What's it going to take to realize this isn't as advertised? Because, Lord knows, I don't want to see it get any worse. I really don't. If we as Americans should have an affinity for any European nation, it should be the UK. I mean, that's who we separated from to become a nation. So we're brothers, really, to those men and women across the pond. They're our brothers and our sisters. And we should feel for them and do what we can for them. And on the same token, do what we can to make sure, or try to make sure, that our country does not open its borders in the way that so much of Europe has. That in actually we restrict our borders. Enough of these tragedies. Come on, guys. It's time to say enough is enough and see it all for what it is. It just blows my mind that this isn't a subject that we as anti-SJWs and they as SJWs can't see eye to eye on and get together. It just boggles my mind why they wish to defend it when so much evidence comes out every day of the death and despair and misery involved with this religion. Hey, I'm going to get down off my high horse, going to get down off my bully pulpit, off my soapbox, and I'm going to cut this one here. So hopefully some of you stayed with me to this point. Hope I didn't run you off. But I'd been thinking about these things for a while and I had to get them off my chest and let you know what I feel. Some people have been asking me what my opinion was, so here it was. You don't have to like it. Don't even have to agree with it. If you don't agree with it and you want to let me know civilly, then do so down in the comments. If you just want to be a butthole and a troll, I don't have time for you. Leave your comment anyway. I'll probably let it sit there, but I'll probably ignore it. You know? Or maybe make fun of it at best. But anyway, hey, let me know what you think. And as always, get out of my yard.